His thumb traced the curve of her spine, and she pretended to still be asleep. Avery Collins is a Black woman who built everything herself, an international art and heritage consultant in Seoul. Her career, her apartment, her name that owes nothing to any man. For almost 2 years, she has loved one in secret, Kang Ji-hoon, president of Kangsung Holdings. In his world, men call him the Black Tiger and lower their eyes. Only she has seen the ink on his chest, the black tiger reaching up toward his collarbone, a thing almost no one is ever shown. In bed, he makes her coffee wrong and refuses to be corrected. In the Yoon Tower, ringed by suits, an executive turns and asks who she is. His eyes find hers. She waits for the thing that always lives there when they are alone. It does not come. Ms. Collins, he says, occasionally works with my company. The words land flat and clean, like a stamp on a form. She stood at the edge of that room, holding a smile she had not agreed to wear. 2 years, and in front of them, she was a woman he occasionally hired. And the same secret that kept her hidden was the one thing that could still undo them both. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a member and help our channel. His thumb traced the curve of her spine, and Avery pretended to still be asleep. The light came in soft across the bed. She let him think he had a few more minutes to himself, because those minutes were the only ones where his shoulders came down. "You're awake," Ji-hoon said. "No." He pulled her closer. Under her cheek, his chest rose slow, and beneath her palm she felt the ink there, the black tiger that reached up toward his collarbone, a thing almost no one had ever seen. "Only you get this version," he murmured. She smiled into his skin. She had heard the line before, and it still worked on her, because it was true. In the world he ran, men called him the Black Tiger and lowered their eyes. Here he made her coffee wrong every single morning and refused to be corrected. "You put salt in it yesterday," she said. It was character. It was salt. He kissed her hair and got up. She watched him cross the room barefoot, watched the tension come back into him piece by piece as he buttoned the white shirt, rolled the cuffs, became someone else. By the time he nodded his watch, he was already gone somewhere behind his eyes. "Come with me today," he said. "The Yoon lobby, 10 minutes. Then lunch. Just us. I have the Cheongdam appraisal at 1. Cancel it." "I don't cancel my work," she said, and pulled the sheet up. That was the deal. He looked at her a long moment, then he almost smiled. That was the deal, he agreed. She should have heard it then, the small pride in her own voice. Her career, her apartment, her name that owed nothing to his. 2 years of him, and she had kept every wall standing. That was the thing she had to lose and did not yet know it. They rode the elevator down together and separated at the door like strangers. She took a taxi, he took the black car. It was choreography by now, and she had stopped minding it mostly. The Yoon Tower swallowed the morning. Avery came in through the main atrium because she had no reason not to, and she saw him already at the center of it, ringed by suits, Han Min-suk a step behind his shoulder like a second spine. A woman stood at Ji-hoon's side, elegant, unhurried, a hand resting near his sleeve as if it belonged there. Yoon So-ra. Avery had seen her photograph. In person, she was worse, because she was kind-eyed. Avery slowed. She had learned to read the temperature of a room, and this one had a script she was not written into. An older executive turned, curious, and gestured toward her. "And this is?" The whole ring turned with him. Ji-hoon turned last. For one breath, his eyes found hers, and she waited for the thing that always lived in them when they were alone. It did not arrive. His face stayed a closed door. Miss Collins, he said, occasionally works with my company. The words landed flat and clean, like a stamp on a form. Someone nodded. Someone else had already moved on. Seo Ra offered a polite tilt of the head, the courtesy you extend to a vendor. The conversation closed over the moment and kept going, and Avery stood at the edge of it, holding a smile she had not agreed to wear. A pleasure, she heard herself say. She did not remember crossing the atrium. She remembered the cold of the revolving door against her palm. 10 minutes later, the black car pulled up beside her at the curb, and the rear window came down. Min Sok held the door without a word. She got in because the alternative was a scene, and she did not make scenes. That was another wall. Ji-hoon settled beside her as the car pulled into traffic. He reached for her hand as if nothing had happened. Lunch, he said. There's a place. Occasionally, Avery said. His hand stopped. Occasionally works with your company. She turned to look at him. Is that the word we're using now? It was a room full of Yoon people. It's always a room full of someone. Her voice stayed even, which frightened her more than shouting would have. 2 years, Ji-hoon. And in front of them, I'm a woman you occasionally hire. You know what I am, he said quietly. You know what my name does to the people near it. I know what it does to you. She watched the muscle move in his jaw. I'm asking what it's doing to me. He looked out the window. The city slid past in glass and gray. Everything I keep close, they use, he said. So I keep you far. In the room. Only in the room. And I'm supposed to feel protected. You're supposed to be safe. She let go of his hand. Not dramatically. She simply opened her fingers and set it back on his own knee, the way you return something that isn't yours. You know what I felt in there? She said. Erased. He did not answer, and his silence was an answer, and she filed it away with the salt in the coffee, and the separate cars, and every small subtraction she had called love. The car rolled to a stop at a red light. Avery watched a stranger cross in front of them, some woman with a name that meant nothing to anyone, walking wherever she pleased. Take me to Cheongdam, Avery said to the driver. I have work. Beside her, the black tiger said nothing at all, and for the first time in 2 years she did not feel the silence for him. The secret had a shape, and the shape was domestic. 2 years of it, folded into the small hours where no camera reached. Avery kept a mug in his kitchen that only she used, white with a chipped rim he refused to throw out. Ji-hoon kept her handwritten notes in a drawer beside his bed, each one dated, some of them nothing but a single line about coffee or rain. They met at his apartment on the top floor, never hers. He arrived after midnight and left before 6. She learned the rhythm of a man who owned half a district yet moved like a thief through his own home. Stay for breakfast, she said one morning, wearing his shirt, sleeves rolled to her elbows. He watched her pour from the machine he had bought, only because she liked it. I can't be seen leaving in daylight. Seen by who? He set down his cup. Everyone I've ever made an enemy of. That was the wall between them, and he called it protection. Love creates leverage, he told her once, quietly, as if reciting a family law. If they knew what he wanted, they would know where to cut. So he hid her the way he hid everything that mattered, and she let him, because the hiding felt like being chosen. She believed the danger lived outside. Rivals, ledgers, men in other buildings who counted his weaknesses. She never once counted herself among the things that could be traded. The mornings taught her his habits. He drank his coffee black and hers with too much sugar, and he had memorized her order at a cafe 2 streets from her studio, a place she had chosen precisely because it was hers. When she mentioned it, he only nodded. She thought nothing of it then. The cracks came the way cracks always come, from the edges inward. It started with a driver. She hailed a car outside a gallery opening, gave the address of her apartment, and the man pulled into traffic before she finished the second half of the street name. She leaned forward. How did you know the turn? Sorry, ma'am. Habit. He did not look at her in the mirror. 2 days later, a security guard at the cafe held the door and said, "The usual corner is open, Miss Collins." She had never given him her name. She had never given anyone there her name. She told herself Seoul was small. She told herself people noticed a foreign woman with a certain kind of client. The explanations arrived quickly, and she reached for each one because the alternative had no floor beneath it. Then came the dinner. Ji-hoon brought her, for the first time, to a family table. Not the whole family. His mother, Kang Hye-rin, 62 and unreadable, sat at the head with the stillness of a woman who had buried more than she had lost. Avery had prepared for suspicion, for the cold audit of an outsider. Instead, before Ji-hoon could speak a single introduction, Hye-rin looked up and said, "Avery, sit closer to the window. You prefer the light." The room went quiet in Avery's chest. She had never met this woman. She had never told this woman anything, yet the name came out worn smooth, the way you say a name you have said 100 times in private. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened, just slightly, and he pulled out her chair without comment. She smiled through the meal. She answered questions she should have had to explain, and found the questions already knew their answers. When she said she painted, Hye-rin said, "The Blue Series, yes." Avery had shown that series to no one but him. She found Min-suk afterward in the corridor, the security chief, 44, and built like a closed door. She kept her voice level. "Han, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How many people know about me?" He held her gaze for a beat too long. "Miss Collins, I don't understand the question." "Yes, you do." She stepped closer. "How many?" His eyes moved once, toward the dining room, toward the mother, and came back empty. "You should ask him." "I'm asking you." "That isn't mine to answer." He inclined his head, polite, final, and stepped around her. She stood alone in the corridor with her own pulse, and something turned over inside her, slow and cold, the way a picture inverts when you finally see the second image hidden in it. She had spent 2 years believing she was a secret kept from his enemies. A liability guarded behind midnight and false exits. She had let him hide her because she thought the darkness was for her sake. But the driver knew her street. The guard knew her name. His mother knew her paintings, her preference for light, the exact color of a series no gallery had shown. A rival's man had watched her at the cafe, and no one had flinched. The enemies were not the ones who didn't know. They all knew. The whole architecture of the family had known her name for months, maybe longer, had been shown her file, her routes, her habits, the way you brief a room before an asset arrives. She had not been hidden from them. She had been hidden from herself. The realization did not feel like fear. It felt like discovering the story she thought she was living had, all along, been about something else entirely, and she had only ever read the first page. She walked back toward the dining room where Ji-hoon waited, and this time it was her turn to say nothing, and to let him wonder what she had learned. The invitation had come on cream cardstock, embossed with the Kang crest, and Avery had almost declined it. Then Han Min-suk delivered the reason himself, standing in her gallery doorway with his hands folded. The family wanted her at Madame Hye-rin's birthday because she had authenticated a Joseon-era scroll that had hung in their home for 40 years. Her name, it turned out, carried weight in that house. Just not the weight she wanted. She arrived in a dark green dress and stood at the base of the marble steps, while Ji-hoon waited above her. He looked at her the way he always did, like she was the only variable he could not solve. "How should I act tonight?" she asked. As your consultant or as your girlfriend? He hesitated. 1 second. 2. The hesitation answered before his mouth could. Tonight is complicated, he said. That isn't an answer. Avery. It's fine. She climbed the steps past him. I'll figure it out myself. The reception hall glittered with people who already knew her name. That was the first thing that landed wrong. A woman in silver pressed both hands around Avery's and said, "So I finally meet you in person," as though they shared a long correspondence. An older man nodded at her across the room with a knowing smile. A cousin murmured something to another cousin, eyes flicking her direction, and both went quiet when she looked back. She had spent months believing she was Ji-hoon's secret. She was learning, one handshake at a time, that she had been something else entirely. A rumor everyone was in on except her. Madame Hyerin received guests near the windows, regal in charcoal silk, and gave Avery a single long look that measured her like a purchase being considered for return. "The scroll consultant," she said. "My son speaks highly of your eye." "Your family's collection is remarkable," Avery answered. "It is." Hyerin's smile did not warm. "It stays remarkable because we are careful about what we let inside it." The words followed Avery across the floor like a hand at her back. Then Seo Ra arrived, and the room seemed to arrange itself around her. She wore red and moved like she owned the deed to the building, threading straight through the crowd toward Ji-hoon with the ease of someone who had done it 100 times. She stopped at his side. She looked at Avery. She smiled. "Ji-hoon," she said, loud enough for the nearest circle to hear, "aren't you going to introduce us?" The pause stretched. Avery watched it happen in real time, watched the calculation move behind his eyes, watched him weigh a dozen rooms full of people who could hurt her against the one person standing in front of him. She already knew the math. She had watched him do it on the steps. "Ms. Collins works with me," Jae-hoon said. The sentence detonated quietly. No one gasped. That was the cruelty of it. To everyone else, it was nothing. A title, a fact. Only Avery felt the floor tilt. She did not let it show. She extended her hand toward Seo Ra with the composure of a woman closing a transaction. "Avery Collins," she said. "Heritage consultant." Seo Ra shook it, pleased. Ji-hoon looked at Avery, and Avery smiled at him the way she smiled at difficult clients, and then she turned and walked away before he could find whatever he meant to say next. She found the balcony because it was empty, and empty was the only thing she wanted. The city burned cold below her. She heard the door slide behind her, and she did not turn. "Avery, how many of them know?" she said. "That isn't your enemies." She faced him now. "Do your enemies know who I am?" He held her eyes. To his credit, he did not flinch. "Yes." "How long?" "Months." The word had teeth. She felt them. "Then your family knows." "Yes." "Your men know." "Yes." Each answer laid another brick, and she watched the wall build itself between them until it was tall enough to stand behind. She had imagined so many versions of the danger she was in. In every one of them, she had at least been hidden, protected. A card he kept face down for her sake. That was the belief she had carried up those marble steps, and it was the last thing she owned in this, and now it was gone. "So I was never your secret," she said. Her voice came level, which frightened her more than shouting would have. "Everyone who could use me already knew where I lived and how I mattered to you. I wasn't hidden. I was just the woman you refused to acknowledge. I was keeping you safe." "No," she almost laughed. "Safe would have been the truth, so I could protect myself. This kept you comfortable. There's a difference, and you know exactly what it is." He reached for her wrist. She stepped out of range without hurry, and the smallness of the motion undid something in his face. Avery, listen to me. I have been listening. That's the problem. She looked past him, through the glass, at the room full of strangers who had known her name before she knew theirs. I authenticated a scroll for your mother. Turns out I couldn't authenticate my own place in your life. She moved toward the door. He said her name once more, quieter. The way a man says something he is afraid is the last time he will get to say it. She stopped with her hand on the cold handle, and she felt the whole shape of the trap she was standing in. His world, his mother, his silence, all of it closed around her with no visible seam. Then she opened the door herself, because that, at least, was still hers to do. She was going home to pack. The suitcase clicked shut at 3 in the morning. Ji-hoon stood in the bedroom doorway, still knotting the cord of his robe, and for a moment he read the scene wrong. He thought it was another argument, the kind that burned hot and cooled by dawn. Then he saw the closet, empty hangers, the drawer she kept for herself pulled all the way out, wiped clean. He crossed the room. Whatever this is, we can fix it. Avery zipped the front pocket without looking up. She folded a scarf that no longer needed folding. I love you, he said. Her hands went still. I know. She finally looked at him, and there was no cruelty in it, only exhaustion. That's the worst part. Because I know you do. She lifted the apartment key from her palm and set it on the table between them. The brass ticked against the wood, small and final. But I can't keep being loved only when no one's looking. She held his gaze. I'm done being your secret. Ji-hoon opened his mouth. His jaw worked. He looked at the key, then at her face, then back at the key, as if one of them might rearrange itself into an answer he could speak. Nothing came. The man who had ended negotiations with a single sentence stood in his own bedroom and found the room utterly quiet. Avery lifted the suitcase off the bed. At the door she paused, her hand on the frame. And if I asked you to stay, he said, then you still haven't understood. The door closed behind her with a soft, unbearable click. For 3 days, the apartment kept handing her back to him. A mug in the sink, rimmed with the tea she liked, a hairpin in the folds of the couch, a book left open on the arm of the chair, spine cracked at a page she would never finish. He picked none of them up. He couldn't decide if moving them would be a betrayal or a mercy. On the 4th day, he stopped waiting for the ache to teach him patience, and let it teach him something else. He called the office and killed the marriage alliance before lunch. 2 years of contracts, of dinners with the Yoon family, of Seo Reza's practice smile, canceled in the time it took to sign his name. His mother came within the hour. You are throwing away everything I built for you. You built it around a silence, Ji-hoon said. You mistook it for permission. Hyrin's chin trembled. I did what a mother does. You watched her. You had men follow her to her own gallery. He set a folder on the desk and slid it toward Min-sok, who stood by the door. That ends now. No one tracks Avery. No one photographs her. She agreed to none of it, and neither did I. Min-sok took the folder. And if she never comes back? Ji-hoon looked at the empty chair across from him. Then she was still owed the truth. Weeks passed the way winter thins into spring, not all at once, but in a slow returning of light. The night of Avery's international opening, the gallery glittered with people who had never once been told her name mattered to anyone dangerous. Ji-hoon arrived without an entourage. No convoy at the curb, no men fanning the doorway. He wore a plain dark coat and stood at the back like any other guest, studying the largest canvas as though it might explain him to himself. A journalist recognized him and cut through the crowd, phone already lifted. Chairman Kang. What is your relationship to Miss Collins? The room seemed to lean in. In another life, he would have stepped past the question, let his people fold it away. He didn't move. She is the woman I love, his voice carried, unhurried. And I should have said that a long time ago. Avery, across the gallery, turned at the sound of it. She did not run to him, but she heard. He found her later, near a quiet corner where the light was low. I didn't come to ask you to come back, he said. You deserve the truth even if you never choose me again. She waited. I started calling it protection, the distance, the secrecy. He exhaled. It was easier than admitting I was afraid. I hid you the way I hide everything I'm scared to lose. There was no rush of music, no falling into arms. She nodded slowly, and that was all. It was enough to begin. The dinner came weeks after that. A small restaurant, a corner table, 2 glasses of water, because neither of them trusted wine to say anything true. They talked about her work, his mother, the strange lightness of an ordinary evening. When the plates were cleared, Ji-hoon laid his hand open on the table. He did not reach. He did not ask. Avery looked at it for a long moment. Then she set her hand over his. He smiled, small, private, the first real one in months. She went home that night lighter than she had been in a year. And there, half under her door, waited a plain envelope. No stamp, no name. Inside was an old photograph, Ji-hoon, younger, laughing beside a woman she had never seen. She turned it over. A hand had written across the back in hard black ink. Ask him what happened to the last woman he loved publicly. Across the city, Ji-hoon sat in the back of his car as it idled at a red light. His phone lit up. Unknown number, he answered. A man's voice, calm and pleased. You finally told the world about her. A pause. Now we know exactly where to hurt you. The line went dead. Minsok watched him in the mirror. Problem? And for the first time in years, something moved across the black tiger's face that had no name but fear. Avery. The light turned green. He didn't move. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been loved in private, but erased in public, reduced to someone who occasionally mattered? Would you have kept every wall standing the way Avery did, and known the exact moment your dignity was worth more than his silence? And when someone hands your love back like something that was never yours, do you have the courage to stop filling the silence for them? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about dignity, love, and being seen, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.